have made these notes right. So Arsenal did double over Chelsea last season. They lost to Villa. They drew with Leeds. They lost to Wolves. They lost to Spurs. Then they lost to Burnley. They drew with Southampton, lost to Everton, and then beat Chelsea.
And there you go.
That's just Arsenal in a nutshell, isn't it?
Sum them up.
How do you read Arsenal Football Club? How do you get a read on how they're going to do? You know, at the start of the season, you try and predict who's going to be in the European positions. You try and predict who's going to be in the bottom three, who's going to struggle. And then you have the middle sector teams like Arsenal. And I can't get away with those words coming out my mouth because I always think of Arsenal as one of the biggest clubs in the world. I do, because we played against the greats and it was a struggle playing against them. Yeah. But now they've come a million miles away from that. They've got it all on. So it's Mikel Arteta now being under pressure after one game and how they finished last season. They've got some massive games coming up. Chelsea, then Man City, two huge ones. The only thing I would say if you're an Arsenal fan, and I think my memory's correct, where we all watched Arsenal play Chelsea last season, and there was a point in that period when they played Chelsea and Arsenal were really, really struggling. They were struggling massively, and then they got that result. And it sort of turned them round a little bit, didn't it? It gave you like a feel-good fact if you're an Arsenal fan. Right, we've still got it. We can still do it. So now they've got to find some sort of form. Mikel Arteta was on radio this morning saying there's a lot of people out there wanting to bury him and bury Arsenal. That's not the case. You know, fans and I think pundits and guys, analysts like ourselves, we look at it, we just call it how we see it. Yeah. And Arsenal need to improve because they can't be playing the way they did against Brentford. And very quickly, you know, when you're a manager and you go in to do a team talk and you set the tactics up and you do all the analysis work you want, there's some points that you've got to strip it bare and you've got to say, right, what are Brentford going to do against us? Well, they're newly promoted to the Premier League. They're going to close us down. They're going to throw long balls in the box. There's going to be about 40 throw-ins coming in Friday night. We've got to win the war. We've got to win the battle and then win the war. So we win the battle, we grind, we work, we beat Brentford down. If we've got to keep the clean sheet, we do it. And then our class will tell in the end. It was just read it. It was just so obvious what was going to happen. Arsenal were not going to be up for the fight.
Yeah, and Brentford almost just bullied Arsenal, didn't they? All night. But I almost feel like the worst thing about what happened against Brentford on the opening night of the Premier League season was that it wasn't a surprise to anyone that Arsenal actually lost. No, and that's quite sad.
That is sad, Seema. You know, I felt that Brentford beat them up. And it's as simple as that. It was funny, we were talking about when we used to go to school many, many years ago. And when I used to come home from school, the big boys used to get me, put me up against the wall and take everything off me. All my money, all my packed lunch, everything. That's what they did to Arsenal, basically. They took everything off them. And it was easy. And that's unacceptable. And it doesn't matter what happened behind the scenes, whether there was a problem with COVID or whether anybody was injured. It doesn't matter. Whatever 11 players you put on the pitch, and Don is absolutely right, the first thing you do is fight. What it suggests to me is that in the dressing room before the game, Mikel Arteta has got a board up and said the lads about tactics, about stuff that he should have done on the training ground. But just before the game, you are in a London derby. There's 17,000 people going to be at that new stadium. You haven't watched the game for 2 years. They're going to be at you. You've got to be up for it and win your fight. And then the other stuff will come to the fore. That's why they lost all those games last season, JJ, and then they beat Chelsea. Because they know it's going to be a fight. And they're up and ready for it. And it doesn't matter how young you are. When you start playing football from a very young age, you fight, first and foremost.
That side of the game will never change. Never. We've heard a million team talks. Used to get it at Liverpool all the time. Win the battle in the first 20 minutes, the cream and rise to the top. You'll beat them in the second half. You'll play better than them because we've got better players. But if you don't win that fight and you're not up for the fight, that's the worry. I think if you're a manager, that rings alarm bells. Yeah. Mikel Arteta will come away from that game thinking, we were never really in that game. Yeah. That has to be a worry.
OK, we can't all be doom and gloom ahead of the game against Chelsea. Let's hear from the Arsenal boss ahead of that match. Here's Mikel Arteta.
Well, from Chelsea, I expect what they've done over the last few years. They're a top team full of world-class players with a great manager. They are the champions of Europe, and we expect a really competitive match. Is what I expect about our team. Our fans, that they're going to be supporting the team right behind them from the beginning because they've been missed so much, and we're going to go there to win the football match. If you don't feel pressure in football, in any elite sport, I think you pick the wrong profession. I think it's responsibility, it's not pressure. We have the responsibility to do our best under any circumstances. Unfortunately, now the circumstances are uncontrollable. The only thing that is going to happen is something that you don't expect, that's for sure. And then you have to try to adapt and do the best as you can. And that's what you have to ask yourself. The rest is about a result, and you know that you're going to be judged on that result. That doesn't mean you are doing a good or a bad job because you win or lose a football match.
Yeah, I'm a fire for Ben White making his debut for Arsenal last week. But after leaving Manchester City and Pep, this job seems like a baptism of fire for Mikel Arteta. All right, so they've been quite busy in the transfer market, and I think they're coming to the point now where they've spent more money than anyone else with Ramsdale and Odegaard coming in. What kind of impact might they make for him, Don?
Well, this is the confusion and this is the contradiction, because Arsenal fans are looking at the amount of money that they've spent, which is an awful lot of money, which is good that they're bringing players in. Odegaard's a fantastic player, but I'm thinking, well, is he better than Smith Rowe? I'm not sure. You wouldn't want to see Saka go out the side. Martinelli's now got a fight on to get into the starting 11. So what they are doing, Mikel Arteta, is bringing the average age down, which I think is a good thing. The Ramsdale one's interesting because they lost Emi Martinez, who's Argentina's #1 goalkeeper, and then they replaced him with a goalkeeper that costs more money, close to £30 million if he gets his appearances. So it's a bizarre one for me, because £30 million, for a backup goalkeeper is an awful lot of money. When people like Jesse Lingard, for example, at Man United are for sale or can be bought for...
And he's a match winner.
For about £25 million. I'm not saying, goalkeepers, and I'm just like for like in terms of the money. But I think there's going to come a time for Mikel Arteta, whether he gets the time or not. I think short term for him, I think he's doing the right thing. It might need Mikel Arteta to have a couple of windows to get one or two players gone, because their squad is a big, big squad. And there's players at Arsenal picking up big wages. So I like what he's doing, but I disagree with what he left us on there when he said, if you win or lose games, that's not the be-all and end-all. Well, unfortunately, it is, because we're in that business.
Especially
no good saying you're playing great football if you lose the first 3 games of the season.
And I think also when we look at the signings and generally where Arsenal are, I think many of the Arsenal fans are just a bit confused as to the direction, the plan. Which direction are they going in? Do you like the signings that you've seen?
Look, it's a long-term plan, Seema, and it's all about the average age of the squad. All the players that they've re-signed, Smith Rowe, Saka, as you mentioned, he's only 22 at Odegaard. They're bringing the average age ground. Ramsdale's a young man still, and they want to. It's a long-term strategy. The why for me with Mikel Arteta is that he's playing a team where Frank Lampard did more or less exactly the same thing, where Chelsea were forced into a corner, had to bring in all the young players, and the same thing might happen to Mikel Arteta. He might start this it's a really good process, by the way, but he can't deal with the short-term aims, which are to win games while you're doing this, and that's what happened with Frank. And because of that, these are good players, and they will grow, and in maybe 18 months, 2 seasons, I can see Arsenal being a very good squad. I think Saka will be amazing. I think Smith Rowe will be amazing. I disagree with Don about Odegaard. I think it's different to Smith Rowe. I think they can play in the same side, by the way. I think they're that good. If you can get Aubameyang going, he'll score goals. This could be a very, very good squad. The problem is, it might not be Mikel Arteta who puts the finishing touches on it, like Tuchel has done with Chelsea. And that's his main problem, especially with the fans coming in. Because the fans will dictate what happens at that football ground now. They lost 7 games at home last season, and he's fortunate the fans weren't there. They've got Chelsea, they've got to turn up. They've got Man City the game after. They've got to turn up. And the Arsenal fans will accept defeat, by the way. They're not naive. They know that Chelsea are better than them. They know Man City are better than them. But there's got to be a way that you lose with young players coming through the system. By the way, that's why letting Joe Willock go, scored 7 goals in 7 games, is absolutely bizarre. Because it's not only just about the 7 goals, it's about what it does to the club. When you bring a player through the system in your academy, the pride in the club is unbelievable. The pride in Saka, the pride in Smith Rowe. You need to give those players a chance. You sell him for 25 million, you get Odegaard in for 30 million. The people at the academy are saying, well, what are we doing? What's the point?
The contradiction where you're right is you're keeping people like Willian on a lot of money. Why wouldn't you keep Joe Willock instead?
Yeah.
That's the direction. If you're going to go that way, keep your best young players.
Keep them all.
If both clubs are in a kind of transition, let's call it project form, we've definitely got to say that Chelsea's project is already providing some fruits. And Thomas Tuchel, in the time that he's been there, it was a good top 4 finish, even though they somewhat fell away a little bit towards the end of the season in the Premier League. They're champions of Europe. They're Super Cup winners. And now they've just signed one of the most feared and informed strikers in world football. By the way, Ben White and the rest of the Arsenal defenders will not want to be playing against Romelu Lukaku.
Well, no, they wouldn't. But that's the flip side, because if you are a top professional and you fancy your chances and you're up for the fight, I'd want to play against Lukaku. I know exactly, because he is at the peak of his powers. He is a phenomenon now. He's a different player to Premier League fans when they see them last. He's thinner, he's quicker, he's got more confidence, his all-round game has been developed, he's a brighter player since the last time we've seen him. So people like Ben White have got to relish this. That's the last thing you want if you're an Arsenal fan, or Ben White is being scared of someone like Lukaku. Go out and give him a game. Go out and go straight through the back of him in the first 5 minutes. He'll come back for more, but that's the type of players Arsenal need. Chelsea now, as Leroy said before, bring all these bright young players through the academy and give them first-team opportunities. But then Frank went out and spent about £250 million. Then Thomas Tuchel just added on top of that with Lukaku. So they are so far ahead of Arsenal, but it maybe just gives Arsenal fans a little bit of hope that in 2 or 3 years' time we can get back to this level. But Chelsea now, with Thomas Tuchel and the addition of Lukaku, that is frightening. And
what was scary about last weekend when we saw them against Crystal Palace, there was no Lukaku, of course, no Havertz, Kante, Chilwell or Ziyech, and they were that good.
So
can you imagine?
Try and buy that bench.
Yeah.
That's £500 million at least.
Alonso was ridiculous, and I'd forgotten about him. I thought he was fantastic. Just interesting about Ben White, and Lukaku, which you're actually right, Don. He's a different player to who left Man United. Confidence, by the senior player as well. He's talking like a senior player. The key to it, and we know it, when you know that in a one-on-one situation, if someone's better than you or someone's stronger than you, you get your mate to help you out. All Ben White has to do is says, whenever they get the ball, Xhaka, you stand in front of him.
Yep.
It makes his job easy. That's what experience is. At knowing what you're doing. You don't go, like last week got beat up by Ivan Toney because he didn't do that. Now, I'm hoping, because I think Ben White is an outstanding player. I think he is an outstanding player. I hope he's learnt that off his one game, and he should have done. If he's playing against him, he just gets Xhaka. When they got the ball, you stand in front of him, you contest the first ball, and I'll come and
that's been a leader. John Terry used to do that. John Terry weren't quick, but he get his 2 fullbacks, nice and narrow. You have protection there, 2 holding midfield players, protect me. That's what he's got to do, Ben White. But this is a brilliant game to watch. I think you're right in what you're saying, JJ. This is one where you kick back and you watch this because you know it's going to be a thriller.
Yeah.
Scoreline?
1-3.
2-2. Chelsea.
Well, yeah, 1-3, yeah.
Bit harsh. 2-1 Chelsea.